JLJ Media. Find the audio version of this podcast there. Today we're going to be digging down into the details of the first episode of Monsters, which you can find on Netflix. The name of the episode is...
Sure can.
The name of the episode is Blame It on the Rain. And following the murder of their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez, which they initially blame on the mob, Lyle and Eric Menendez are taken into custody by the FBI. They're haunted by nightmares. With his parents dying, Eric visits Dr. Jerome Oziel and confesses to what he and his brother did. His father, Jose, was controlling and physically abusive, while his mother, Kitty, was suicidal, they say. Following the confession, Dr. Oziel calls Lyle into the office, calling his mistress, Judalon, to witness the confession. And at the office, Lyle denies that they killed his parents and leaves with Eric. What an intense intro. We got to know who these people were. We got to know who the family is, the brothers, Eric and Lyle. We got to know the circumstances surrounding this crime. To a degree.
Yeah, to a certain degree.
From their point of view. A little bit. So much more to come. But oh my gosh, it's so intense, and it was neat. Good God. Okay, so listen, folks, if you were joining us for the very first time, usually we talk about soap operas, and in this show stars a soap star, someone who was with us for many years on General Hospital, and now he's he's on Netflix on Monsters. Nicholas Chavez, who plays Lyle, the controlling one. The one who's
actually the one that's, you know what, I from what I viewed, I would say the one that's more like Jose.
More like the dad. Okay, all right. So I mean, so listen, folks. From my point of view, this is a fresh story. Okay, all of this stuff happened in like the parents were taken out in 1989, and all of this spans pretty much the early to mid 90s.
Yeah.
By the time it's all said and done, and there's a sentencing, and we know, and the public knows what the full story is. So this is kind of a fresh story for me. This is kind of the first time I'm sort of living it, because I was way too young before to watch this.
Well, you were all of 3 years old, sweet.
Yeah. I mean, I was way too young. You
were all of 3 years old. What kind of mom would I be if I was having you watch the blow-by-blow of the Menendez trial? Come on.
So
what
really,
kind of mom would that be?
Kind of as it stands, the only Lyle and Eric Menendez I know are Cooper Koch and Nicholas Chavez. I mean, we really got a very quick look into who they are as brothers, their relationship as brothers, how they interact with each other, how they influence one another, how well they know one another. And Lyle, kind of in charge, man. He's definitely calling the shots here early on. He's the one that it wasn't necessarily his original idea, but he picked it up and he went. Inspired by a movie.
Yeah. Yeah, inspired by a movie. But you know, it was interesting to me that who thought of this first, who was dreaming of this first, playing it in their mind, was indeed Eric.
It was Eric. And then Lyle was like, yes, great idea. I'm not even going to question about it. Yeah, we're doing this.
Yeah, he jumped on quick, didn't he?
And he's like, all right, we're going to go here. We're going to do that. We're going to find an alibi. We're going to call our bud. We're going to go try to see a movie. Which, I mean, I don't know how much of this is real and how much of it is dramatized for television, which I'm sure a lot of it has been exaggerated for our entertainment. But
yeah, you know, I would think that I know most movies that are made of something true, there's a little embellishment going on.
Yes. Usually. Yeah. I mean, you dramatized,
for theatrics.
You know, exaggerated for our entertainment.
But you know, the idea of going to the movies and getting the ticket stamped with that timestamp was actually quite brilliant. It didn't work for them. No. They didn't anticipate that whole, I can't sell you a ticket with that time on it, blah, blah, blah. But you know, it was actually quite brilliant, the idea.
I mean, my question was, I mean, to me, it's an indication of how not so really good at this they are. I mean, maybe a little affluenza is involved here when it comes to how easy they think this is going to be.
Yeah.
Because the fact that they got the movie ticket before, not after. Or after, not before. Like, go get it beforehand, and then no matter how late you are, you can say, hey, it doesn't matter. I want to see the second half of this movie. They'll still tear it.
Right.
They'll still let you in. That's the secret, folks. If we can go back in time and tell them to do one thing different.
Well, it appears to me from what we've seen so far that if Eric would have, they were getting by with it.
Oh,
it
absolutely.
appears they were getting by with it.
They were totally getting away with it. People had, like kind of raising their eyebrow here or there, as we found out, as we'll cover in the next episode. But here in the first one, they were absolutely, they were going to memorials, the Directors Guild of America, all being seen in public, not going to the right entrance, all sorts of different stuff. Totally, absolutely getting away with it. Even if there was a question or two, there wasn't enough evidence. Nothing.
No, they were getting by with it.
And by the time I'm sure that this seeped out into like the major public, I mean, it was probably right away for all I know, but like I don't know how much suspicion was on those guys to begin with, like immediately out the door. Maybe we'll explore that a little bit more as the series progresses, because we only watched the first 2 episodes so far. But I'm just curious to know, like, if it was like, if like the public is like, ooh, is it obviously those guys? Or was it like, oh my God, the mafia, a real life mafia hit in the late 80s. I don't believe it.
The way I remember it, because unlike you, I was not 3.
Right.
I do remember it. Did I follow it super close? No,
you were busy being a mom.
You didn't have to follow it super close. It was just in the media so much at the time. It was
in the Inquirer. It was at the check stand.
It was everywhere.
It was at the 10 o'clock news.
You could have watched on Court TV, actually.
Oh yeah.
You could, that was televised. The first trial was not like OJ breaking into the soap operas and killing the genre. Okay, not like that. But they were very much in the news, and the public wasn't thinking about these 2 guilty kids either.
Okay, yeah. So we're not alone on this podcast. We got a couple of people joining us. We got Chandra's here, Melinda's here, Melissa's here, Kaiwan. Hello, everybody. Hi.
Hi, you guys.
Thanks for joining us.
Glad you're here.
And then Melissa confirms, there was no suspicion. They brought it on themselves later on.
They did.
We saw the beginnings of that in the second episode, so, we'll cover that in a moment, so stay tuned. But yeah, I mean, so sticking here with the topic here, it was neat from our point of view and perspective that Nick Chavez got the first line of the entire series. I didn't write it down, but he got the first line. We got the introduction shots. Here we are, Beverly Hills, boom, 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 down into the limo. Here are the guys. And it took me a moment to figure out where we were in the timeline, before, after, leading up, but it was after. And we saw the differences in how these guys were handling it. Eric already falling apart. With Lyle trying his best to hold his brother together.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness. F-bomb.
Lyle was staying, boy. He wasn't racked. The first episode too, we saw that Eric is suffering with these nightmares.
Oh yes. In which so all of this we have okay, let's try to get through this linearly, because we have this memorial at the Directors Guild first, in which they both tell speeches, and then they play this Milli Vanilli song that seems just so awkwardly placed. Like so awkwardly placed. And I'm curious, I didn't look it up. Maybe somebody can tell us in the comments later on how important Milli Vanilli was to these guys in real life, if they really were big fans.
Well, I don't know. Of course, we don't know. But, the time period is perfect for Milli Vanilli. And they were big pop stars that year, and wound up getting Grammys and all that stuff, and found out to be they were a scam.
Oh yeah.
But I don't necessarily think it was necessarily all Milli Vanilli's fault. They were being managed.
They were being led in that direction.
They were being led. Anyway,
unlike these brothers.
It is very interesting, though, that how Milli Vanilli was indeed a facade. So was the Menendez family as a happy unit.
Oh, yes.
It was indeed, like Milli Vanilli, a facade.
Totally. It's funny because you can't see the chat, but I can. And Chandra said moments ago, Lyle loving on Millie, but Millie was a trip considering that they're just as fake as the brothers.
Exactly. Yes, yes, yes.
And
Yes.
Melissa wants to know if they blamed it on the rain. Not yet. Not yet. So we go through this memorial. Eric's falling apart. We go into this split of how they're handling Halloween Day, as it's depicted on the show, where Lyle's at home handing king-size candy bars out to the neighborhood kids and just being a jerk as he is.
Yeah, he's a pretentious little turd, isn't he?
Totally.
Gosh, he's awful to people. Like people, people just, taking care of his needs, and just anybody that's in service, or he was just awful to talk down to people constantly. Yes. He was awful.
He thought he was better than everybody.
Oh yeah, he thought his Beverly Hills butt didn't smell.
Nope, not at all. But Eric, of course, is seeing Dr. Oziel and just spilling his guts. Spilling them.
He's just so tormented from his dreams. He dreams about killing his parents, and the only thing that can stop him from dreaming and being able to go to sleep is shooting himself.
It is wild.
It's wild.
It's super wild. So, a little insight into the guilty conscience of Eric Menendez after this. I think that the dreams speak for themselves when it comes to the fact that the parents won't perish. The fact that he has to unalive himself even to get out of the situation. I mean, we don't really need to dig down deep. Nor do I know what the YouTube tolerances are for such things. Hey, Cheryl. It just goes to show how deeply guilty he felt about this. I think that when the doctor was talking to the guys after he brought Lyle in at the end of the episode and was describing the two types of murder, there was the sociopathic planned out one and then the crime of passion. The show may or may not be, we'll see, because like I said, we haven't seen the whole series yet. But they may have been trying to perhaps paint both brothers as one of each. Lyle's the sociopathic planned out one, while Eric was more committing a crime of passion in the moment.
Well, it's interesting, when the first trials, they were tried separately. The second trial, they were tried together. I mean,
I'm sure we're going to see that depicted throughout. It really seems like the timeline is going to be less about what happened before and much more about what's happened after. I mean, the primary focus is going to be more.
I would imagine they're going to do some. I think they're going to do some flashback kind of.
Yeah, kind of like how we've been seeing how they've been depicting it in this one, where it's a bit of almost a split time frame. Kind of what's happening around their sessions with the psychologist, and then also what was kind of really going on before. I bet when they're done talking to the psychologist, we'll then switch over to just like nonstop, intense criminal proceedings. Trial.
Probably.
That's my bet.
Probably, yes.
We'll see what happens. Stick with us, folks.
No, from the time of the actual crime, the actual tragedy, to the time where they were like given their sentences and they were ready to, not going to court anymore. It was a long time.
Oh yeah.
1989 to 1996.
Yeah. Heck along.
It's a long time.
Heck along. Chandra says that there were reports of serial, not fun activities by the dad in the mid-70s, and the mom didn't believe it. I don't know how much of that may or may not be covered in the show. As I understand it, we have episode 5 to look forward to when it comes to some really good stuff, when it comes to performances by our lead actors. So I think that'll probably come about Saturday.
I'm so far I say, man, Alexander, you're doing great.
Nick AC. He's eating this up. I think that they've done a great job when it comes to casting. I think that the acting has been brilliant. I've really enjoyed. I wrote his name down here. We've got excuse me while I reference my notes. Oh my god, where did I freaking write it? It's ridiculous. Dallas Roberts is the name of the actor who plays Dr. Oziel. I think he's doing a really good job of like playing that I'm gonna manipulate these guys to giving me the case of the century.
Yes, but at the same time, you can tell he's scared to
But
death
he's
of them.
also scared to death and trying to make sure that they don't turn on him.
He's scared of them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But he kind of sees like his own future in
Mm-hmm.
this. I don't know exactly what motivates him because I don't know. Well, we have more show to watch, and I didn't see the original thing because I was too young. So I don't know if his whole plan is to eventually just turn them over to the police, or if he's just like, oh my God, this is, as a psychologist, this is something I can write a book on one day. So I think it's probably no more number two.
That's why he convinced, he said that he wanted to start recording their sessions.
Right.
He wanted to,
Yeah.
have his material to be
Yeah.
able to reference to
Yeah.
easily.
I think that was ep two in which that was changed. Um, but yeah, Stellar. Also, the mom and dad, they're not unknown actors. We got Chloe Sevigny, I think that's how you pronounce it.
Mm-hmm.
Who's no stranger to Ryan Murphy projects. She's done a number of things, Horror Story and whatnot. And then we've got Javier Bardem, who is known as a very well-known, prolific film actor.
Mm-hmm.
Making his way down to the small screen for this particular
Yeah.
project, playing Jose Menendez.
I was saying earlier to Matt that it was interesting that they chose the parents, a role that the actors that are playing the parents are very recognizable, very, very famous actors.
Mm-hmm.
Where the boys are, sure, they have some credits, but they're not as recognizable as those parents are to the typical viewer.
And I wonder if that's trying to help the audience through when it comes to the story, with being able to relate to the story, because the
Mm-hmm.
public may or may not be a little more aware of
Mm-hmm.
Jose Menendez at the time and his wife Kitty, due to their
Mm-hmm.
influence in Hollywood and their other business dealings, versus their kids, who I'm sure were thrust into the spotlight after the crime, not necessarily before.
I guess Jose was involved in music.
Yeah, it seemed like it. Like RCA was what he was working for.
Yeah. I also I read, and of course I don't know that this is true, but I read it. There is, I guess there was one of the original, not original, but one of the members of Menudo. As you guys know, Menudo is a group that is revolving when it comes to who's in the group.
Mm-hmm.
When you
Mm-hmm.
age out, and Menudo is always teenagers.
Yeah.
You get
Ricky
to be a certain
Martin.
age when yeah. So Ricky Martin was the original youngest Menudo. But I think they're even a group today, but
Mm-hmm.
it's revolving and you age out.
Mm-hmm.
So there was one of the young men that was in the Menudo group, uh, made accusation against Jose too.
Yeah. So, I mean, the show was made a number of months not a year and a half or so ago. So anything that's a new revelation is certainly not going to be covered in the show.
Mm-hmm.
They really haven't depicted much, if any, of that so far in what we've seen, especially in episode one. Episode
Mm-hmm.
one was very focused on their dysfunctionality as a family. The yells, the screams, the fights, the you're not worth
Yes.
it. Episode two gets a little more detailed into the potential ramifications of their family split. But we saw a
Mm-hmm.
lot of how they just did not get along behind closed doors at
No.
all. They didn't see the
Oh,
value in their kids' choices, and the kids didn't see value in their
oh,
parents' tutelage.
oh. And they were so Jose especially, it didn't matter to him who saw him do whatever he did. He humiliated the boys publicly
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, and privately.
and privately.
And yeah, and the way that, and it's just really interesting to see how they kind of saw their mom. They twisted it in their minds to see their mom as this incredible victim of their father with only one way out. And
Yes.
it's just it's why it's I don't know a word other than wild to use when it comes to kind of crawling into the very broken mindset of these two incredibly broken children from a very
Yes.
broken family that had
Very, very, very dysfunctional.
and it really goes to show also the trauma bond, I guess you could say, between the brothers as well, as the two people that they like. The only from their perspective, they only have one person to trust, and it's their brother.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get into the Ryan Murphy of it all. I mean, let's talk about it, Ma. That was the most Nicholas Chavez we've ever seen in our entire lives.
Yeah.
Especially like they did a little montage
Yes.
And then he come stepping out of that shower.
Yes.
Like, goodness gracious. I thought I was going to see a Twig and Berry.
Almost, huh?
Almost.
Almost. Man, he's got such abs, doesn't he?
Yeah, and they were, I mean, he didn't eat anything for a week before filming that scene, and made sure he did a bunch of sit-ups before they started to make sure he was pumped up.
Exactly.
But my goodness gracious, he's grown up. I'm not going to say he's graduated. I'm not going to say, oh my gosh, now he's really made it. But little skinny Nick playing scrawny little just out of high school Spencer.
When he burst on at General Hospital calling himself, remember when he burst on and he was calling himself Victor?
Yes. He was practically pencil thin.
He looked like a 17-year-old then.
Absolutely. Yeah, the swimmers built the first time that they were at the Metro Court pool set.
Yes.
He did not look like how he did when he stepped out of the shower.
No.
But folks, if you're enjoying Lyle Menendez's look, Nicholas Chavez who plays him, look up some of the stuff that he's done on General Hospital. He was in a very popular pairing on GH, very popular. So there's a lot of content out there, especially on YouTube, that highlights a lot of his romantic work that he had with another character named Trina. #Sprina for those who are unfamiliar. So check it out if you enjoy it. If you like who these guys are so far. I mean, there's a lot of Nick Chavez out there. Cooper Koch is a name that I've heard before. I can't give you a long list of credits that he's done, but he's been out there. It's a name I've heard before.
Oh, I haven't heard it before, but he's sure a handsome guy.
Yeah, and I think that he's really kind of nailing this emotionally broken younger brother, guilt-ridden role as well.
He's not the younger brother.
Is he? He's the older one?
He's the older one.
That surprises me.
When this crime occurred, Eric was 21 and Kyle was 18. Lyle was 18.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't get that from this. I felt like Lyle was the older one. Well, okay, well, just more mature.
No, because he's more
in charge.
Their personalities are different.
Yeah, vastly different.
Yeah, and Lyle seems to be a little more assertive and a little more confident. Or Eric's not so much.
No, he definitely enjoys the family's money a lot more than Lyle does. Early on, you can see it early on. Chandra comments, strawberries and blueberries. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness gracious. Melissa says the men I date is like Menudo. They're revolving and eventually age out. Oh my gosh. I mean, this is still the Ryan Murphy show, and so there's going to be the Ryan Murphy of it all. There's the gratuitous workout scene. There's the stepping out of the shower.
It took me a couple of times to hear it before I was like, oh my gosh, Nicholas, stop saying the F word. I mean, Spencer, stop saying the F word.
So many F words. This is F-bomb ridden. I would say, in my estimation, if I may be critical, maybe one or two too many. I think we could ease off of the F-bombs a little bit and still get the point across. But hey, I'm not a younger audience. Maybe they really like it. Maybe them 25-year-olds are super into it.
One scene was like they almost got caught because they had things in the back of the car from Big Five.
Yeah. So they went to gun shopping with Big Five. And I think that was covered in episode 2. Them having to grab that stuff, but that's just more evidence of the fact that they just aren't really as good at this as they think that they are. And eventually soon, even I'm sure the psychologist tape and, the confession that we get in episode 2, stay tuned, spoiler alert, that kind of spurs this investigation forward. Well, it's going to be wild. It's going to be crazy.
Was it episode 1 or episode 2 where Jose grabs Lyle's hair?
Oh, I think that's episode 1. Yeah,
that was something else.
I didn't know anything about that, Ma. So,
me either.
Yeah, so apparently he was starting to get just a little bit thin.
Well, or maybe he is 18 years old. I mean, I know, yes, there are some young men that are balding at 18. I know that, but it's not all that commonplace. But evidently he had either early onset baldness, or perhaps he had alopecia. Probably just early baldness. And I have a feeling that Jose was wearing the same thing.
Oh, probably.
Probably.
Oh, probably.
But he humiliated him even though it was a family setting, just the four of them. But ripping that off his head at the dinner table, he was just a mean SOB for sure.
Totally. Chandra says that shocked me. Melissa says he probably went bald from stress. Cheryl agrees. Stress could make hair fall out.
And it was interesting too that Eric didn't even know he wore that.
No, it was the big secret. Not even Eric.
It was a big secret between Jose and Lyle. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, you could just see, just in that moment, some of the depths of the trauma and the control that the parents had exerted on these kids. And
they led us to believe that soon after that is when Eric actually went to Lyle and talked about.
Well, he watched the movie.
Watching the movie and what he was thinking of doing. And then I can't say. I would never say, okay, yeah, they deserve to die. Good thing the boys killed them. No, I would never say that.
No.
But it's just that the whole just they were tortured. They were tortured young souls. They were, and I would imagine the way they showed it, you would think that Eric came to him soon after that dining room humiliation about watching the movie.
Oh yeah.
So maybe that was fresh in him then. And he was
very easy. Very easy for them to not only make this decision, but also go to a couple of stores before they can finally find just a sporting good one that'll offer up some guns. They walk right in. Take a couple of shots, a lot of shots, actually. I mean, this was so rageful.
It was.
I mean, you could see it in their faces in the next episode when they do a couple of different shots of it, which will actually be the cover art for our next episode. Keep your eyeballs open for that in a couple of minutes. But there was just so much rage, so much hate, so much malice. I mean, yes. I think the official, I looked that up, I think it was 6 shots into Dad and 10 into Mom.
Oh, well, he went outside to reload. Because she wasn't dying fast enough, I guess.
And so they went in and boom, finished. It was. And I listened. There was 2 shots when Lyle went back in, and I mean, I don't know like I said, we haven't seen the rest of it, so I don't know where they're going to go when it comes to the psychology behind it, what they really felt deeply about each of their parents. But to me, that shows less compassion and a lot more, maybe even blame. Deep down, deep-seated blame.
Yeah, and the boys were speaking to each other like he would be proud of us because we pulled it off so well.
I mean, they're lying to themselves.
Anything Jose always said, if you didn't do anything, you had to do it well.
Delusion.
So they thought that they were saying that Jose would have been proud of how successfully they pulled it off. It was crazy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm just going over these last notes here to see if there's anything else. They bury their weapons. They mentioned cold water. It's funny because I live in Los Angeles now, Mon. I've experienced a lot of it, and so they're in Beverly Hills. I know Beverly Hills. I've been through Beverly Hills many times. It's fun to see some of the shots of Los Angeles. I'm like, I think I might have been there. It was really interesting to see the edited LA skyline, which is a lot shorter than it is now. There's a lot more tall buildings on the LA skyline now. And they also mentioned, let's take cold water. And I'm like, I know what road that is. I know cold water.
That's weird.
I know Coldwater Canyon. I know that one. That goes right through the mountains and lands right there in Beverly Hills.
That's kind of the way I used to watch Sons of Anarchy that way, because Sons of Anarchy is charming California. But if you actually see the landmarks and where they're at, they're in Lodi, California, you guys, which is about 30 miles from here. So
you can just see it off of Highway 5.
They go up and down 99 constantly.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I would see exits. I'm like, okay, I've been there. But it's interesting. Of course, you watch Sons of Anarchy. It was set in charming California, which is no such place, but there is such a place. It's called Lodi.
Chandra says, oh, they walked out of the front door with shotguns. Amateurs. Chandra, I'll give you one more than that. They loaded the shotguns in the driveway.
Yeah, they did.
Definitely not the most stealthy of criminals.
Yeah, with the truck. It's amazing that, because they made a lot of mistakes, really, but the police made probably just as many, because these two boys were getting by with this. They were.
Oh yeah.
If it wasn't for Eric's guilt-ridden, and he was having a breakdown because of it.
Yes.
If it wasn't for that, if he'd held it together like Lyle, dang, they'd still be down there spending their mom and dad's money.
Absolutely, it would be. Melissa says, how mad would you be if you successfully committed this crime, got lots of inheritance, and your brother blabbed on you both? PO'd to the point where I'm going to go in there, figure out exactly what it is that my brother said, try to convince the psychologist that my brother is lying, threaten him with a Snickers bar like this is the movie The Chase with Charlie Sheen. Here's a deep cut reference for you folks. You kidnapped me with a candy bar? Anyway. But overall, I'm going to say, when it comes to a 5-star rating, when it comes to an introduction, episode 1, when it comes to Monsters on Netflix, Ryan Murphy's Monsters on Netflix, starring these two young actors and more, 4 out of 5 stars. 4. I give it a 4. 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5. Decent intro. Decent intro. I wasn't thrown off my seat. I wasn't like, this is the best show ever. I didn't pause it and have a long conversation with what's his bucket about it. I just pressed on to episode 2, ready for the rest. So 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5. What about you, Ma? What do you think?
I would say I'd give it a 4 out of 5 too, but I have a feeling by the time we get to the end, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5.
Well, maybe the finale will have earned a 5 out of 5. All right, folks, that's going to be it for us talking about Monsters episode 1. Blame It on the Rain. Stay tuned because just in right now, click on that video. We're going to talk about episode 2, Spree. Where we learn a little bit more about what these guys do after the murders and before. All right, so stay tuned for that. All right, folks, thanks for joining us. I've been Matt.
I've been Kat.
And this has been the Monsters After Show in association with JLJ Media. And we'll catch you next time. Bye.